Welcome to the Week in Business, where we share with you some of the major events in the world of business in Nigeria this past week. I am Taiwo Akinawo. Coming up on the Week in Business this week, Sages Scribes Consultants host a two-day Employee Assistance Program Summit at the NECA House Event Center, Lagos. Zenith Bank hosts the 2023 Non-All Exports International Trade Seminar at the Civic Center, Victoria Island, Lagos. The second edition of the Lagos Naira Conference holds at the Sun Hall, 4 Points by Sheraton, Victoria Island, Lagos. Sterling One Foundation and the United Nations Global Compact organizes the Africa Social Impact Summit 2023 at the Eco Convention Center, Lagos. All right, it's great to have you join us on this edition of the program. Thank you so much for tuning in. It's all about business event highlights on the show, and that is why we're going out of our very way to bring you special moments in business events for the week. So fasten your seatbelts and let's go on this business ride for the next 30 minutes. Once again, welcome to the program. I'm Taiwo Akinawo. All right, we begin with the maiden edition of the Sages and Scribes Consultants Employee Assistance Program Summit, which focused on the theme, Employee Wellness for Productivity and Performance. It addressed employees and individuals' psychosocial health and the impact on job performance, health, and mental and emotional well-being. The summit also had professional development workshops on trauma management for employees, the importance of a great place to work, wellness clinic care for the caregiver, addiction and substance abuse, and the place of parenting as a worker. Take a look.
I'd like to say that EPA is a repository of best practices and how we learn from each other. Of course, we enjoy the summits, the conferences, the institutes, the learning, but we enjoy each other as people. We learn from each other as people. Best practices worldwide reside in one place. When they reside with EPA, we all have access to it and we all get better. At EPA, we wish everybody in the field to do the best they can and to report how they do it.
Mr. Adewale Smart Oyerinde, the Director General, Nigerian Employers Consultative Association, NECA, who was represented by Mrs. Celine Oni, Senior Director, NECA, spoke on the importance of workplace wellness, productivity, and performance from the employer's perspective.
We all know that in the workplace and working all from home, for employees are their desks for an average of between 5 to 8 hours every day. And the question is, how much of that time are employees fully engaged? Or how optimally productive are they? It is possible to be at your desk and not be productive. Isn't that so? Yeah, it's possible to be at your desk. So it's not about the hours you spend, but really to be sure that yes, the employee is engaged, the employee is interested in the work, the employee is motivated to work, the employee enjoys the work. Employers need to begin to focus on achieving those. And I know that a lot of, activities and programs are designed to ensure that employees are engaged, that our talents are motivated.
The summit also had professional development workshops on trauma management for employees with Dr. Gmojubola Adbiri, importance of a great place to work with Mr. Olumide Ajomale, wellness clinic care for the caregiver with Reverend Olabode Daramola, addiction and substance abuse with Dr. Yinka Jibuno, and the place of parenting as a worker with Mrs. Adeoyin Adeshino. Mr. Shegun Mojid, President, Chartered Institute of Personal Management Nigeria, CIPM, also spoke on employee assistance as a viable resource for employee engagement, talent retention, and management.
For EAP to become a retention tool, to serve you as a retention tool, to serve in managing your talent, I don't know whether you are HR in this room, whether you are EAP manager, you can't do it all alone. Number one, you need your CEO to be your cheerleader. I keep telling HR, I got to know this at the turn of the century. HR, we will not make progress if we don't sell our product to the MD so that the MD becomes, and I'm telling you from experience.
Dr. Peter Bankole, Director at EDC Pan-Atlantic University, also addressed employee wellness and health as a critical factor in sustainable national development.
The first thing is that when employees are highly trained and motivated, then they become high performance. And when they are high performance, what it means is that they are going to deliver. And so they become great assets to the organization. Now, for these workers, when they are healthy, it means that there is no absenteeism. They are always at work. It means what? They are going to deliver on the mission and on the targets. So when you care for them holistically, these employees, they know, they remember, and that increases their commitment to the organization.
Professor Larry Bale, President, Business School Netherlands International, Nigeria, spoke on the topic, "Our employees are indeed our most valuable asset." In his presentation, he noted that employees are not just the heart of an organization, they are the catalyst that ignites the success, the driving force behind innovations, and the guardians of a company's vision. They are the most valuable assets, and their dedication and passion fuel growth and inspire greatness.
So, today, it's important for us to know that the rationale for celebrating employees is to be able to, one of the ways to do is to recognize their collective skills. And to recognize as well that we have to create a supportive and inclusive environment. We have to cultivate a culture of respect. We have to find a way to understand that when employees feel appreciated and empowered, they are more likely to be engaged. Ladies and gentlemen, we need to prioritize employee development. It's not by accident that I moved from being an ordinary pharmacist to playing games with people in sales or people in marketing. If I have to just say what, if you really want to make a big difference in the life of employees, not only must you understand the shape to make a difference, must also manage it to make impact.
At the day 2 of the summit, Dr. Radhi Vadaya, incoming President EAP South Africa, who joined virtually, gave a brief presentation on the past, present, and future of EAP.
EAP, if you look at the history, global history of EAP, employee assistance programs, for those of you that are new to our services, it actually started in the US. And because the US was going through much substance abuse issues in the workplace, around the 1940s, 1950s, they started implementing programs targeting alcoholism and looking at the impact of that on productivity and safety in the workplace. Over time, it evolved into like a broad range of services, including mental health, financial health, or work-life balance. And now, employee assistance programs is at the forefront of a large number of multinationals in the US.
Day 2 also saw a number of professional development workshops focusing on ethics and standards with Dr. Chris Abojai, workplace bullying and harassment workshop with Mrs. Abiba Balogun, and workplace mediation and conflict resolution with Dr. Yemi Agbelusi.
The Employee Assistance Program Summit is a great step in the right direction to catering to the needs of a good workplace environment for both the employer and the employee, as it's important to make the workplace a great place to work. Now moving on, let's go witness the 2023 Zenith Bank International Trade Seminar, which focused on Nigeria's non-oil export industry, the present, the future. Nigeria has been a monoproduct economy for many years, relying strongly on crude oil as its primary source of revenue. This 2023 Zenith Bank International Trade Seminar helped galvanize discussions around various opportunities in Nigeria's non-oil export business. The highlight of the event was Zenith Bank signing of a Memorandum of Understanding with the African Continental Free Trade Area AFCFTA to develop a cutting-edge smart AFCFTA platform. The MOU signing took place between His Excellency Wamkele Mene, the Secretary General of the AFCFTA, and Dr. Ebenezer Onyagu, the Group Managing Director and CEO of Zenith Bank.
It will be important for me to take us through the achievements we have been able to record since we started this program. First is that we've been able to influence policy direction with regard to how non-oil export business is being conducted. One of them is the fact that there is a policy recommendation for extending the repatriation proceed of non-oil export proceed from 90 to 180 days. It used to be 80 days in one of our programs. We came up with that idea, and this has since been adopted. The policy that makes it mandatory for shippers not to carry export without a Nigerian export proceeds form number was also from this seminar. We also recommended the development of the automation of the Nigerian export proceeds form and the non-commercial exports form, which has led to improvements and transparency in the processing, recording, and reporting of export transactions in Nigeria. We further recommended the harmonization of activities of the various agencies at the port. We also have a very effective collaboration with the Nigerian Export Promotion Council in training and retraining non-oil exporters in Nigeria, including NYC members. We have also come up with a program that will cater for SMEs with our Zero to Hero program. Essentially, what the Zero to Hero program speaks to is the fact that if you have never done export before, we provide you the platform of incubation, the platform for training, the platform for you to understand what export is about, and we also expose you to the rudiments of sourcing export materials as well as documentation. We take it further by also assisting in identifying possible and potential export markets liaising with the Nigerian trade missions abroad. Now, if you look at the slides that is being shown right now, we started this journey in 2016. You will recognize that on a year-to-year basis, you can see, although marginal, improvement in terms of contribution of non-oil exports. Since the story started, we started advancing it, you can see the gradual and steady increase. The one for 2020 is understandably so because of the impact of COVID. So talking about the future, what do we expect? What our expectation? The inefficiencies at the port has to stop. I'm glad the custom representative is here. You see, like in my various engagement with His Excellency, the Secretary General of AFCTA, he talks about the fact that the prosperity of Africa is in our hands, that nobody, no foreigner will develop Africa. We have to lead the way for others to follow. But what we have done in Africa most of the time is that we are waiting for the foreigners to, no, we need to lead the way. So which is where we talk about the idea of the African Continental Free Trade Zone. We expect that the commencement of the implementation of this agenda will change the fortune for not just Nigeria, for the whole of Africa. And in the course of this event today, you can see the table laid out where the MOU between Zenith Bank and African Continental Free Trade Area will be executed. The MOU will be for Zenith to develop. We'll be developing the smart AFCTA portal, which is going to serve as a trade portal that will showcase African products and services where they can be found. With the development of this portal, one of the capabilities we are going to build in there is that you can sit in every part of Africa and market your products and services. You can sit in every part of Africa, identify whatever products and services you require that are in Africa.
Dr. Kingsley Obiora, Deputy Governor, Economic Policy, representing the Acting Governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, provided global and domestic context to the need for non-oil export promotion.
If you look at the equation for gross domestic product, exports enter not only as an addition with a multiplier effect, it enters as an endogenous variable, something that you can control fully by yourself. And so we cannot grow at 3.2% and expect to pull 31% of us living below the poverty line. That is why I'm very excited that Zenith has continued its tradition to call attention to non-oil exports. I saw the chart that Dr. Onyago put on the board, 1.2% non-oil exports to GDP ratio. In the decade between 2001 and 2011, the non-oil exports to GDP ratio for Nigeria was 0.8%. And you can imagine that in the next decade, so from 2012 to 2022, I looked at the board, they are still at 1.2%. But we need to be growing much faster. Countries that are way smaller than us are doing much better. It might interest you to know that non-oil exports from Netherlands is 29% of their GDP. Most times they do $108 billion in non-oil exports. Now keep in mind that Netherlands is smaller than Niger State, actually half the size of Niger State. I'll give you another example. Ireland is a country that sits on just about 70,000 square kilometers, and they routinely do non-oil exports of $170 billion. So we can do better. Dr. Beniza has shown us on the board what each region can, facilitate. Each region can pay attention to. We have all it takes. We're lucky too that we have a government whose economic philosophy, I might say, can be encapsulated in market-driven initiatives while also protecting and engendering the egalitarian bedrock of our society. So there cannot be a better time for us to grab this our future, work on non-oil exports, and make sure that we grow beyond the 1.2% that we are currently producing at.
Mr. Segun Awolowo, Secretary of the National Action Committee of the African Continental Free Trade Area, stressed the need for a non-oil exports-led Nigerian economy.
The global drive towards green energy has further made it imperative for Nigeria to develop its non-oil sectors. All exporting countries will be impacted in three ways by the global energy revolution, namely, 1, capital loss due to abandonment of hydrocarbon reserves. 2, economic losses as the Treasury may no longer be able to fund the public sector with oil revenues. 3, loss of competitive geopolitical advantage as hydrocarbons are replaced by global or regional energy access to VRE sources, that is solar, wind, hydro, etc. I cannot emphasize enough that an export-led industrial revolution is what is needed for Nigeria and indeed Africa. Just like I did in 2015, I would like to utilize this special occasion to make another clarion call for action to the private sector, and more specifically, the Zenith Bank. You must do all you can to carry large, micro, small, medium enterprises and support them to participate effectively in the after, particularly through tailored financial products and capacity building. You will play a key role in facilitating trade between Nigerian businesses and businesses in African countries where you are currently present. That is Ghana, Sierra Leone, and Gambia, while also expanding your footprint to other African countries. I know in my lifetime I want to see Zenith Bank in every country in Africa. You must not only be known as a non-oil export bank, but also as the after bank. And with the signing of this agreement, it is clear that that is the ambition of Zenith Bank. I have great hopes and confidence that just as you did with the Zero Oil Plan, you will also do with AFTA. Ladies and gentlemen, as I conclude, I want to remind us
that the responsibility to build Africa lies in our hands. We must take bold, audacious, accelerated steps towards ensuring that we achieve the Africa we want. And most importantly, make sure Africans are the primary beneficiaries of the African Continental Free Trade Agreement.
The Secretary General of the AFCFTA Secretariat, His Excellency Wamleke Mene, speaking at the event, emphasized the need for Africa to enhance and harness its productive capacity to be globally competitive.
We know that there are countries that are well poised to take advantage of the AFCFTA because they have the productive capacity, the export capacity. But we want the AFCFTA to benefit all countries and all economies, big and small. And that is why we have introduced the AFCFTA Adjustment Fund, which already has been capitalized by over $1 billion. And the Adjustment Fund is intended to assist those countries that today may not have the productive capacity to invest in the machinery that is required and in any other productive function that is required for them to take advantage of the AFCFTA. And so I want to encourage today Nigerian exporters, investors, manufacturers to consider the entire AFCFTA market, all of the 47 countries that have ratified the agreement, as your market, your export market, so that we use the AFCFTA to scale up our production, to enhance our competitiveness. Your products are seen in Southern Africa. Your products are seen, or services, in East Africa.
This digital gateway, backed by Zenith Bank's expertise, aims to provide comprehensive trade information for the entire African continent. With a commitment of $1 million, Zenith Bank seeks to lead the digitization of trade across Africa. Now to a major one. That's the second edition of the Lagos Naira Conference. As part of its commitment to deepening the stakeholder dialogue on Nigeria's economic stability and shared prosperity, Habitat Nigeria, in collaboration with award-winning broadcast journalist Bore Famurewa, hosted the conference, discussing the theme, The Naira, Path to Institutional Reforms and Accelerated Growth. It was a stakeholders dialogue discussing forex policy and economic growth.
The happenings in the foreign exchange market now is like a ship that is drawn in, highly volatile. Naira is in fact, is rapidly becoming the most depreciating currency in the world. And it is also highly unpredictable. As at yesterday evening, the rate closes around 9:20. As we speak, there is no liquidity in the market. The rate is hovering between 9.40, 9.50 to $1 as at this afternoon. So that is the trajectory, is spike and volatility. Honestly, is scaring. And that the Naira is weakening, not because of the purchase of dollar. Intelligence have revealed the negative impact of unearned incomes and grafted funds that is really doing the damage. The former panelists have said how too much Naira, like the chief mission of the IMF, that is pursuing the little dollar we have. So whereby we have such kind of scenario, too much Naira, unearned hot money in court, is pursuing little limited dollar in the market. This kind of misalignment, volatility, and spike will continue to happen.
Inauguration of the new administration have really been positive in my view. We've got the unification of the exchange rate. We've also got the fact that foreign remitters of money transfer operators are able to deliver money in Naira now rather than US dollars, which was the case before. So I'll say all steps in the right direction, and also the fact that the subsidy for fuel was removed as well, which is also very good from a exchange rate perspective, because of the subset of that was leading to demand for FX in the market. Having said that, I think the challenge right now is that has not solved the supply equation. So we've just unified the exchange rates and removed, what was a CBN official rate, which didn't really, translate into real market rates. By unification, we now have, a window, which is the INA window, that we should use as a reference. But, as we can all kind of like attest to, there's still a parallel rate. So I think the IMA closed at 778 Naira to $1 yesterday. As at this morning, like my fellow panelists have mentioned, the rate is closer to about 950 in sort of the parallel market. So I think there's a key supply issue that we need to resolve for. And I just did a run through of what I think are, the two primary reasons why there should be supply of FX into the Nigerian market.
A number of the steps that have been taken by the central bank since, we had the handover of change of power May 29. So first of all, we've seen them more or less sort of remove the fiat that they had on the exchange rate. So initially, it was a sort of like a taboo to trade above the rate decreed by the central bank, which was about, I think about 440, 450 or thereabout. So that's why we've seen market move up to about 750 or so. We've seen them reverse quite a number of policies. Initially, they stopped things like discretionary CRL, which was a way of mopping up liquidity. We've also seen them reintroduce the two-way quote market, which had been more or less banned or outlawed for quite a while. We've also seen central bank lift the ban on quite a number of institutions. First of all, you had a number of accounts that had been suspended because they had traded in, I believe, Bitcoins or so. We've seen them lift the suspension on those accounts. We've seen Abuki FX come back. At a point in time, they were accused of being the ones behind the depreciation of the currency, even though with their suspension, we saw the currency continue to move.
In a technical panel session that examined driving broad-based growth through effective policy, Dr. Ayo Teriba, an economist and the CEO of Economic Associates, outlined steps that must be taken to attract foreign direct investments and foreign portfolio investments into the Nigerian economy.
This is a nice note to end on and to say that the way forward for any country in crisis like Nigeria, and who needs to get out of prison immediately. First step, create a hatchery of your national assets. They said they were looking to raise $200 billion. You can't say that with trade. You can't set target of how much you want to get on your current account. It's not within your control. But with investment, FDI, it is within any country's control. It's about how much assets you want to put down and attract equity investment into. When Saudi brought Aramco, they were whispering they wanted to do 5% IPO. And there were a more silent whisper that they will do 5% every year for 10 years. Their target was 50%. But once they did 1.9%, it optimized Aramco. Today, Aramco commits to pay 75 billion in dividends and sometimes go to Europe to issue sukuk. And they ask, why are you using sukuk? so that we can keep our pledge to pay annual dividend of $75 billion. And I ask myself, who is Aramco paying that dividend to? To the Saudi government. 98% of it, 98% of $75 billion goes to Saudi government every year. So if it's good for somebody to buy, it's too good for you to sell. That's the point. So your aim should be to optimize the value of those assets. You will sell some, but let those be in extreme cases. Let them be the last resort. Let private sector take a stake and do it through the market. India, Saudi was a bit modest. They were looking for 200 billion. Now, the value of Aramco is above 2.1 trillion now. It was 2.3 billion at some point earlier in the year. Look at what, go to the website in their investment grid now. They're looking for 2 trillion. And it's not sale. It's long-time either brownfield equity investment FDI, greenfield FDI, or project financing, build, operate, own, and transfer. Are we together? So Nigeria should take a cue from that.
A major takeaway from this edition of the Lagos Naira Conference is the need for clarity in Nigeria's fiscal, monetary, and trade policies to attract investment inflows into Nigerians' foreign exchange market. The last but not the least business event for this week is the Africa Social Impact Summit, ASIS, organized by the Sterling One Foundation and the United Nations Global Compact, discussing the theme Global Vision, Local Action, repositioning the African development ecosystem for sustainable outcomes. The summit, which was a convening for regional inclusive development conversations, provided an opportunity for the private sector and impact investors to design market-led solutions and accelerate impact investment into Africa to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals 2030, focusing on climate solutions, circular economy, agriculture, renewable energy, education, health, and WASH. The high point of the summit was the address by the Deputy Governor of Lagos State, Mr. Obafemi Hamzat, who emphasized on the need to act and not make this event a mere talk show.
It gives me great pleasure to be part of this gathering, which is the second edition of the African Social Impact Summit 2.0 here in our great city of Lagos, where we are ensuring that innovation actually meets resilience. I also like to welcome representatives of the United Nations in Nigeria and, of course, Sterling One Foundation, our diverse audience. I'm aware that some past African leaders will also be joining today or tomorrow, and also international business and sustainable leaders, global social impact investors, diplomatic missions, captains of industries, policymakers, and representatives of public and private sector gathering here in Lagos, which is the commercial capital of our country and the new tech startup capital of Africa. As of last year, Lagos overtook Johannesburg and Nairobi as the capital, the startup or tech startup in Africa.
Another high point was a presentation by Professor Banji Oyelawo Oyeyinka, the Senior Special Advisor on Industrialization to the President of the African Development Bank, AFDB. He noted the food deficit as a major economic crisis and the leading cause of poverty in Nigeria.
Sustainability we have defined, of course, as long-term stable economic, social, and environmental future, where development and prosperity are assured as we move forward to address and protect our human prospects with that of our planet at the same time. The key challenges we face are couched in the 17 SDG goals. The pathway from fragility to sustainability forms its roadmap. The SDGs, as we all know, attempt to reduce poverty, improve access to healthcare and education, and of course mitigate the climate change effect. And more importantly, as many Nigerians will tell you today, to solve the food insecurity problem.
The summit convened 2,000 plus business policy, investment, and sustainable leaders in strategic discussions to ensure sustainable and effective action and leadership in 2023 and beyond. Happening today is the AFEX Code Cash Crop 4.0 at the Landmark Event Center, Lagos. Watch out next week as we bring you major highlights of this event. Join FinTech Nigeria on the 15th of August by 1 p.m. for a game-changing virtual event themed Automating Digitalization for Excellent Service Delivery for FinTechs. Streamline, scale, succeed. Empowering FinTechs through automated digitalization for unbeatable service delivery. Save the date for the Association of Corporate Affairs Managers of Banks' second National Stakeholders Conference set to hold at Bankers House CIBN, Victoria Island, Lagos on the 17th of August 2023. Well, that's it on the program today. Thank you for watching. For more business, finance, and economy content, follow us on all our social media platforms at WebTV Nigeria. Thank you once again for watching. I'm Taiwo Akinawo. I'll see you next time. Do enjoy the rest of the weekend and have a great week ahead.